So are Sundays your favorite? Like, do you relax on Sundays or do you kind of are busy on Sundays?
It depends on the Sunday, but generally, I am a Sunday fan. I love the day. It seems like a good day to bake and to make good food. And there tends to be less going on Sundays, but Sunday's just another day I could get called on set too. So, but yeah, I love a Sunday.
Speaking of baking, I actually was going to make zucchini bread today.
Mm,
So I went to the store and then I forgot zucchini bread. Or not zucchini bread. I forgot zucchini, like the main ingredient.
got those zucchinis.
I guess that's not
Yeah,
happening today.
no, that's hilarious. I love zucchini bread though. It's one of those things that I feel like doesn't make sense as to why it's so good,
Right?
but it's delicious.
This one recipe I found uses applesauce instead of oil
Uh-huh.
as like a good substitute, and it works. And I would have never thought applesauce could be used in the baking zucchini bread. Like I thought that would taste appley, but it doesn't.
Ooh, you have to send that to me. That sounds great.
Yeah, I'll send it to you after we're done here. It's really good. My main go-to recipe. But
Yes,
um,
please.
well, how are you doing today?
I'm good. I've had some busy weeks, and this is one of the first Sundays in a hot minute where I haven't had an audition due tomorrow morning.
Yikes!
So, yeah, so I'm excited to relax, play some video games with my husband.
What kind of games do you guys play?
Right now, we're playing a game called Outrider on the Xbox. We like to play co-op games in which there are no other people in your world. I
Yeah.
don't like it when there are other people in the world because I like to be able to think and not be overwhelmed. I'm not a huge gamer by nature, but if there's a good story and we can collaborate, him and I do very well collaborating. So we have tons of fun.
I don't know if is he a gamer, like a huge gamer.
Yeah, yeah.
So I know Mass Effect just did their Legendary Edition where it's like all remastered.
Hmm.
I downloaded that this morning. I've been playing that, so it's
Is
pretty
it
fun.
co-op or is it single?
I think it's single.
Mass
I
Effect?
heard Mass Effect. Yeah, there's like it's the Legendary Edition, and it has all three games in it with all the DLC, like remastered
Uh,
stuff. So
I don't know what DLC is because I'm not that kind of gamer, but he will, and he'll be grateful.
I think it's just downloadable content, like extra
Oh,
stuff.
got it.
But yeah, I'm not a huge gamer either, though. That's the thing. So I'm like, oh, I guess these three games will let me be busy for a bit.
Yeah, if I don't play them by myself, and if I do, it's like Spyro because it's just easy.
I remember that one on the PS1.
Yeah, you can get it on Xbox now. So I have all three. My husband bought them for me, and it's been a delight.
I'm sure it has. I almost, well, okay. Well, I told myself if I had a bearded dragon, I'd name it Spyro. Then I bought a
Yes.
bearded dragon from somebody, and the name they gave him was already badass. So like, I didn't change it. But if I ever bought a new lizard, Spyro would be its name.
What was the name? I need to know.
Oh, it's Khan.
Oh, yeah.
Star Trek. Yeah.
You can't change that. That's sick.
Right. And I'm like, it's a very fitting name because he's kind of a moody lizard too. So it all works out. Okay, well, let's have you introduce yourself so we could put a voice to the face and all that fun stuff.
Yeah, my name is Kenna Roubicek. In the past, I've gone by many names, but now it is Roubicek, and that is what it will stay as. Roubicek is a Czech name. So, yeah, my heritage is Czech, and so is my husband. So it's kind of lovely and cute in that way. Though we are from different parts of the Czech Republic, thankfully, our ancestors are, so we are not related. Um, but yeah, I'm an actor. Either way, I don't really care. how you title it. I'm a writer, a singer. I'm obsessed with dogs. I love avocados like every millennial. And I appreciate a mint julep. So yeah,
Mint
that's kind of
julep?
the base of who I am. You don't know what a mint julep is?
No.
Have you been to Disneyland?
Like when I was 6,
Oh
maybe.
my gosh.
It's
Okay,
been 20 years.
first of all, you need to go as an adult and eat all the foods because that's what it's about.
Okay.
Secondly, a mint julep is like a lemony mint, very refreshing drink. There are alcoholic versions and non-alcoholic. I like either. So yeah, it's delicious. 10 out of 10 would recommend. It's just like minty and lemony and fresh. So good.
So when you drink it, do you go, ah,
Uh-huh.
ooh,
Yep. Yeah, it's delicious.
we're in that season too, where like you're outside and you just have a nice cold drink of some sort and you go, ah, that was good.
Yep. Just like that. Yeah. We're actually thinking of getting like an inflatable tiny pool we live in a townhouse and we have like no backyard, but we just have this dream of just like sipping cold drinks in a cold pool in our tiny backyard.
Why not?
Why not?
Might as well do it, right?
Yeah.
You could get those inflatable drink holders that just kind of float around in the pool.
Shut up. We didn't even think about that. That's amazing.
Oh,
That's
well,
amazing.
I think that's a thing.
Yeah.
I think. I don't know. I don't like swimming, so I don't know.
No, it is. But here's the thing. This pool, you can't even swim in. You just sit in it. So it works for all people.
So like, how big is the pool? Is it like one like where you stand up and you're covered, or is it like
No.
waist below, kind of knees below, probably?
Probably knees below, like you just sit in it. I think it's made for children, but we're
Okay.
getting it on Amazon and we're thrilled.
That's exciting either way,
Yeah. Yeah. You gotta do what you gotta do. I mean, in Utah, where I'm at, there aren't really any, I mean, there's no ocean, obviously. So I wouldn't recommend eating seafood here for one. But also, I feel like there are lakes you can jump into, but you just kind of need some water that is readily available when it gets, into the hundreds in the summer. So,
Yeah, one where we are already hitting mid 80s and we're only in the beginning of spring, so I bet it's going to be a very hot summer.
I'm here for it. Honestly, I'm ready. I'm tired of being cold all the time.
I don't know. I like the spring, but I also like the fall. But I hate summer and I hate the winter.
You hate summer?
I do. It's so hot. Like it makes me not want to do anything. When I get in my car, my back automatically sweats. I'm just like, ugh.
I feel like that's fair, but maybe it's just because you haven't had any mint juleps. You just don't know any better.
Probably. I mean, maybe that will change my outlook on everything. Who knows?
Yeah, that's the one thing you need in life, and then you'll be happy.
Well, I'm going to do more research on mint juleps because I never heard them. Watch me like see it, and I'm like, oh, that's what that is. Like,
Yeah, it's like it's just a minty lemony Southern drink, as far as I know. And if I'm incorrect, forgive me.
Well, we'll see how it goes. How long have you been acting, writing, doing the jack of all trades?
Yeah, so I kind of hate it when actors say they've been acting since they were like 2, because I feel like 2-year-olds stand there and look cute. Like it's not a thing. I did some summer camps as a kid, in which I was always cast as the boy. So, because there were no boys in the little drama camp. So I was Hansel and Gretel. I was the brick seller in Three Little Pigs with a mustache, which again, not sure why that needed to be a man, but I was. And then I really didn't do a ton until I was in a play in junior high. And then I really got into it in high school for acting. And then I abandoned it to be responsible. I studied psychology at UVU. And then a semester before I was supposed to graduate, I thought, this isn't quite it. So I did the dance program. I always danced as well. I did the dance education program for a year, got accepted, but it just didn't feel right. And then I took an acting for non-majors class and I loved it. And I was like, crap, I love this so much. So I thought I was going to double major, but I just took every acting class I possibly could and ended up just getting my psychology degree because it's basically the same as a theater degree. It's about the same level of usefulness. It's a bachelor's, you know. But I'm grateful I studied psychology first. And then I did a bunch of theater at the Hale theaters in Utah and some other theaters. And then I got into film about 5 or 6, 7 years ago. Gosh, I'm old. And I got represented by an agent and have been working professionally since then while balancing a day job. And 2 weeks ago, I quit that day job. I called it my muggle job. My non-magic job, I quit. And now I am acting, writing, producing, hopefully directing full time. Which is really, yeah, it's really exciting. But as far as writing goes, I've always been a writer. I would write little poems about my cat or my dog or my horse as a kid, and mostly narrative things. And I worked for companies as copywriters as a copywriter or a social media writer. So I love writing, and it's been really cool to translate that into the medium I love the most, which is film, and do it from the perspective of an actor who constantly gets scripts. And I can tell you that there are some that have been interesting. It's been fun to play and learn it from the writer's perspective of like, wow, writing a good script is hard to write. It's hard to do.
Yeah.
It's hard to drop ideas that aren't working because you get attached to them, and all of that. So, but it's really, really exciting to do that too.
That's fun.
Yeah.
What movie kind of got you to love movies? Like, what's your first memory of that?
Well, my father was a big movie buff, and he knew every actor's name, very knowledgeable man, big musician as well. So I was really exposed to music and art and books and movies through him. I don't remember a single movie that was like, oh man, this is movie magic for me, because there have been so many. I watched The Patriot way younger than I should have. I watched Lord of the Rings as they came out in theaters, and that was otherworldly for me. Just the immersive world of it, the music, the sweeping scapes, the great characters. That was very influential for me. And then movies like The Princess Bride, like great stories. I grew up on a lot of movies like that were big, sweeping, beautiful stories about great characters.
It's often hard to balance a good story with a good character. Like when you find the two, it's magic, you know? But
Yeah.
then you'll get stuff that has great stories, but like okay characters, or you'll get stuff with really great characters and just a really weird plot.
Right. Yeah, that's so true. But I think I'm a big fan of like writing from a perspective of know the characters inside and out and let the story come from them if
Right.
you can. Because I think that's something that we're seeing a lot more of. Like Schitt's Creek is a great example of that, where they told the story of the characters. They were true to the characters the entire story, and they wrapped it up when it was supposed to be wrapped up, you know? So I'm excited because I think we're headed in a more character-driven way than we have in the past.
I love character-driven stuff too. A lot of indie flicks will have that vibe with it, which is always fun. And then with blockbusters, it's not so much. But when you do get it with blockbusters, it's like, ooh, cool, you know.
Well, I mean, those are the Oscar winning films, right? Yeah. Yeah. I mean, my husband and I watched Lincoln recently.
Is that with his face? The cool actor. I forgot his
Daniel
name.
Day-Lewis.
Yeah. There Will Be Blood, dude. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's actually Adam Driver's in it for a second. Like I didn't even know that. Uh-huh. Yeah. It's actually really fun because it was before, you know, Kylo Ren and stuff. But I I watched that movie when it first came out in theaters and I loved it. I love historical dramas. I love them. And I just think that that film is really well done because it balances humor and his history and phenomenal acting, like not just on the part of Daniel Day-Lewis, but Sally Fields, Joseph Gordon-Levitt. And then when I watched it recently again with my husband, because I was showing it to him, there's one scene that's like pivotal for the character for Abraham Lincoln, where he talks to a random Morse code boy, and it's Adam Driver. And it was this reminder to me that all actors start somewhere.
And Drivers and Lincoln. I probably would. Here's the thing. I saw Lincoln. I'd probably rewatch it again.
Mhm.
But it's not like on my to rewatch list, but like it's like if it was on, I'd probably watch it. Um, I don't know if Adam Driver, have you seen him with short hair? Like he's kind of unrecognizable in some degree, but then
Yeah.
he has very Adam Driver quality
Uh-huh.
characteristics, you know. He's in a new movie with I think it's Matt Damon that's directed by Ridley Scott. It's coming out this year. And it's about two Frenchmen fighting like the last duel. I think it's called The Last Duel, but like they're fighting like in that sword fighting era.
Yeah, that right there is a recipe for something I want to watch. You
Right.
know, like
Tell me no
great
more.
actors, great director. Yeah, I'm down.
Yeah. So I'm excited for that. I like Adam Driver. I think he has the humor, then he also has the seriousness, and he's a gem.
He's great. Yeah, he's great. And even just in this tiny little cameo, which I can imagine a young Adam Driver getting this role where like you're going to act across from Daniel Day-Lewis in a short scene where he's Abraham Lincoln. And I would just crap my pants. Like I just like what a cool opportunity, you know, and really cool to see where he's ended up after that, you know.
That's really cool. Maybe I'll rewatch it because that's fun. I like that.
I forgot how much humor is in it. It's funny. It's so heartfelt and funny and well done and suspenseful. And also, oh my gosh, I forgot his name. He's so good. He's a really famous actor. Shoot. He's in it. He's great. I forget who it is.
just a famous actor.
He's incredibly famous and he plays a really great character. I don't know. It's just very well cast all the way around. So
Gotta love it.
yeah.
So with acting and writing, what was like what do you find is like the hardest thing to do with both?
For acting, it's always hard to let go
Right.
for me. I'm a very cerebral person. I love psychology. I love getting into the brain of it all. I'm also a very methodical person. I care a lot. I do my work. I put it in. And the hardest part is letting it all go and being present and listening. For writing, I would say letting yourself make mistakes and not taking them personally when you correct them. So, you know, I just sent a script to my friend who's a great writer, and he sent it back to me, and he had some great notes. And it would be very easy. It's always very easy to criticize yourself and take that personally. But I think the magic is where you take note in a way where you can remove yourself from it, respect what you've done, and respect what you change and let go of, you know?
Yeah, I know. I agree with that writing aspect. Especially, I don't know, because like when I first started getting the screenwriting, I took some classes up at the U, and the way that the class was structured is that we would bring in pages every night or it was like once a week in class, so like that week or whatever, and at least 5 or 6 people would read pages that night, and like the whole table would just give constructive feedback, and they just write down notes. But it was interesting because I feel like when other artists are giving feedback on your work, or creatives for that matter, it's always to better yourself. It's never really to say like you're a crappy artist or crappy filmmaker, whatever. Like it's always like, this is how I would do it. This is why I relate to it. Do with that what you will. And there are some people who would not take that well at all, though. And so
Yeah.
it takes a special kind of, it's a learned thing that you kind of have to separate yourself from, like you said.
Yeah. Well, just like how actors need to learn to let auditions go, right? Like you audition, you don't think, you just let it go. You do your work, you let it go. I think it's the same with any art form. You must be able to take criticism, but on the flip side of that, I think it's also important to choose who you take criticism from. Yeah. Like I've heard before, like, don't take criticism from people you wouldn't trade places with. And that's not to say that certain criticism isn't valid, but I do believe there are people that are out to tear you down. But if it's well meant, even if it's not perfectly said, you should consider it.
No,
so,
for sure.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of times too, like if you're getting feedback on a script, sometimes it's not that person's genre. And so they're already going in with a bias, right? And
yeah.
I don't know. You're right though. It's always, I don't know, it kind of goes back down to like, do you know them as a person, like, because like once you know them as a person, then you could totally get where they're going with it and their personality. And every writer has a voice that comes through their writing, like, so I don't know. You're right.
Yeah. Well, there's like, I think I heard someone put it this way where they said there are different types of feedback and some of it is stylistic, right? Mm-hmm. Where it doesn't make the script good or bad. It's a stylistic choice. And you have to determine that, but all feedback should be considered, whether you take it or not. I think it should all be considered. You should take it, sit with it, and then make your choices and thank the people who gave it to you for what they gave you.
So when you have the famous shitty first draft, do you send it to certain people first? Because, they'll just give you very great feedback. That's really, reality check kind of a thing.
Yes. I take a good hard look at something before I send it on, and ask myself how it sits with me first.
Right.
I'm just that kind of person that I really want to make sure that it sits well with me. But I send it to people who I know are excellent at what they do and who have my best interest in mind. So people who, yes, aren't afraid to tell me the hard truth, but they tell it in a way that is to help me grow.
Right.
I like straightforward criticism, but it's kind of, I don't know if you've read the book Radical Candor, but that book talks about making sure that when you give feedback to people that you are direct and that they know you care. Because if you give feedback that's all caring, it's not direct enough. And if you give feedback that's all direct, they don't know you care. And so if it's all caring or all direct, it's not going to land on them. But if it is caring and direct, that's what I want. So I keep the people around me must have my best interest in mind, and I have theirs in mind. And so I send it to people I trust.
Yeah. Well, and surely since you've been acting for quite a bit, it seems, and writing for that matter, I think over the years, that's kind of something you just kind of learn as you go. Because when we first start, I don't know. I mean, there's some people probably are like that from the get-go, but how did you handle self-doubt and stuff early on?
Not well. I would say early on, I didn't handle it well. And I think especially actors and writers, especially actors, I think you go through a phase of like feeling like you have to please everyone. Like all the feedback that everyone gives you is right and you're wrong, and that everything matters and you don't want to make mistakes. And that's poison.
Right.
It is absolute poison, and you cannot progress if you live in that space, because this art is about messing up. And it's about creating. And anytime you create, you're going to land on things that don't work. So when I actually learned to handle it, what I learned to do was, one, study, take classes, read books. It is a craft. It is a skill. I think Leonardo DiCaprio, after he won an Oscar for The Revenant, I listened to an interview with him, and he said he still takes acting classes, and he will for the rest of his life.
Leo?
Yes.
What?
Yes.
Dang. Okay.
Yeah. And when he was a kid and he did What's Eating Gilbert Grape,
Yeah.
He knew he wanted to be an actor, and he started studying then. And it's because a lot of people, the biggest mistake I think you can make as an actor is to not study. They think, they think it's like a natural gift. And some people can have a more natural inclination to relaxing and being themselves in front of other people, but it is a craft, and there are many different ways to approach it. And you can't know what works for you until you know the rules. You can't break them until you know them. So studying gives you huge amounts of confidence. And also, you know what your work is, and you're able to let it go after you've done your work. And your work is not to please people. Your work is not to get jobs. Your work is to tell the story as an actor authentically. And there are many different methods you can use to do that. But if you've gone into an audition and you've done your work, you did your research, you were honest in that room, then you can feel fulfilled, and everything isn't about getting a job. Because if you base your happiness on whether or not you're working, you're a miserable wretch of a human being as an actor.
I think that's just across the board.
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially,
for sure.
Especially with social media being a huge thing with being creatives, like it's a curse in that sense. But like during the pandemic, for example, I was comparing myself to like all these other people putting their work out on social media and like constantly posting behind the scenes stuff. I'm like, what? Like, why am I not doing that kind of a thing? But it really, I don't know, it dampens your mood, and you start hating people that don't deserve to be hated. And then you realize that you guys are all cool, and I'm sorry for being an ass.
Yeah. Actually, I read a quote the other day that was like, it said, if people are jealous of you, it's probably because you're doing something they wish they were doing. Mm-hmm. And I turned that around on myself. When are the times I've been jealous of other creators? And every time I can tell you, it's because I wasn't doing what they gave themselves the freedom to do. And I could do it. I just had to give myself that freedom and permission.
Allowing yourself. Yeah. I think to allow yourself to be creative is harder than to actually create, because I don't know, it's like a mental block, Yeah. And like writer's block, for example, like I'm sure you can attest to this, is that you have this great idea and you get to the page, like, and then you start writing, and all of a sudden it's just like the wall goes up, you start overanalyzing, and then you're not allowing yourself to tell the story. And it's just like you have to open up the floodgates to let all the creativity.
Exactly. And honestly, the majority of the acting classes I've taken, the purpose of the class was to remove self-judgment, because it will kill you. Worse than writing something bad, self-judgment will murder you.
Interesting. Yeah, that's interesting. I guess that makes sense. The way actors' minds work, and the way you guys all go about it, and what you look for in scripts, even, because it differs from person to person, like, and what you bring to the table, it's just being on the other side of the camera. It's so cool, but also very intimidating, because that's a whole another craft and element that I can't see myself ever touching,
Well, I mean, there are parts behind the camera I won't ever touch, right? Like I would never be a sound guy.
Poor sound guys.
And I say sound guy, but like sound person, really. But I would never, like, I had a sound guy on a film I was on, and he was just explaining the science of it. And how he has to calculate how someone will sound depending on their distance from the camera and like bouncing off walls. And I was like, I never want to do this job. I admire them so much, right? Or even a gaffer. Lighting. No, right? So but the thing about it though is it's all skills. It can all be learned. And I think we don't, especially acting, I feel like we don't talk about it that way. We're just like, someone is so natural. Yeah. Or they like studied so hard to remove their self-judgment so they could be present and honest. So in singing, I feel like it's the same way. It gets the same kind of bad rap when it's really, they're all skills. They're all businesses that can be taught.
Well, there's this YouTube video channel guy who analyzes the way people sing, and he will do like the voice or the mouth movements and like, the shape that they're doing and trying to explain the science behind it. And for a song that sounds so simple, there's so much technique that goes into it. That blew my mind, because I'm like, a lot of the singers, like you said, it's like, oh, it's probably just natural talent. And do they even realize what they're doing? Some probably not, but most exactly know what they're doing. Like,
yeah. Well, and the more you know, the less fear you have.
Yeah.
Because you're like, oh, when my voice starts to tighten in this way, I change the vowel. And all of a sudden it opens up and you have more control over your instrument, because your voice is an instrument. It's just, yeah. So I definitely, as a kid, I could not carry a tune. And a lot of it was just that I wasn't listening. And I taught myself how to listen and match pitch, so, and then later when I took lessons, there were things I was doing well that I was able to then explain, because I went, oh, because my vocal cords are doing this. And then there were things that I was struggling with that we tweaked, and we did exercises and we trained my voice that I was eventually able to do. Right. So again, like, it's all just skills, and they can be learned.
Yeah, it's fun. I know, being a writer and director for myself, I know a lot of people say a director should know how an actor works and take acting classes. But they also say that director should also know how the camera stuff, like all the stuff that the cinematographer would know, right? Like, they should know the basics of that and the basics of everything. So yeah, there's that too. There's a lot of shortcomings that I have yet to face head on.
Yeah, you could look at it that way, or you could look at it as opportunities, right?
Oh yeah.
And just the more you know, the better you do in general. So even just like talking to actors, what you're doing now can give you insights into our brains. I can say that being directed by directors who understand acting a little bit is like a godsend. It's a dream for an actor, because you are able to give them what they want.
So what's the worst direction that you have received? That you've heard multiple times, that this seems like it's a common lingo with directors.
The worst is, can you cry at this word? And that's also written in scripts a lot. I hate it because forcing crying makes everyone involved uncomfortable. The audience doesn't like it. The character doesn't like it, but crying should be something that is a result of the situation and what's happening in the story. And it doesn't always happen. So a lot of times if I see that in a script, I'll like cross it out, because it doesn't leave space for natural reactions, because, it might be written in the script that way. And then what I'm getting from my scene partner that's not the way I should react, So right. I find it very limiting, and I've had directors ask me to do it, and I'm like, I can, like, you train to do that, but I promise it may not be exactly what you want. It may even play better if my character doesn't cry, if they laugh, being able to that's where the actor can surprise you and give you different takes each time. And you can choose what works best. So I don't love that. That's not my favorite. I also don't know any actor who likes it when directors give them a line read, tells them exactly how they'd like a line said. you can talk about the motivation of the line, right? But the quickest way to get something inauthentic is to tell someone exactly how to say it, because they'll just repeat what you say, and it's kind of backwards. Whereas if you say, hey, instead of approaching this like you're so happy to see her, what if it's that you're afraid of her? And then you're going to get all these different options of what you're looking for without it being robotic. Does that make sense?
No, that makes perfect sense. It's always fun because like watching actors do their thing and totally add their touch to it. It adds so much more to the characters that were on the page, right? And like a lot of the times it's not even like the exact same, like how you envisioned it on the page, but then you realize they add so much more depth to it, and it just makes it all the better and magical. And that's the way that everybody collaborates. That's my favorite thing with filmmaking is the collaboration between every single person involved. Like, it's so cool.
Well, in my mind, that is how it's supposed to be. And I think a lot of people make the mistake of trying to overly control it.
Yep.
Which is, that would be my mistake as an actor, to try to force myself to cry. What I get out of that is not as organic or nuanced or surprising. Like, the best is when you do something and you're like, I don't know what that was, but it worked. It was honest,
Yeah.
And when you have a director who hired you because they want to collaborate with you, it is a dream. And not all directors are that way. So a lot of them aren't. Especially if it's for a certain type of film, maybe for a certain network that has a specific brand or something. Those are not as fun as actors. We're grateful to get them, but they're not as fun because you're not creating with everybody on set, with the gaffer, with the sound guy, with the director and the DP. So that's the dream. A collaborative film set is a dream.
Like when everybody's on the same page, and like I even like it too, like when other departments ask questions for clarification, and it's just like, oh, and then if they have issues, then it goes back to the DP because they have to like refigure it out, and then it's like, how do we work around that? Oh, well, then you ask the actor, like, well, are you okay with not saying this line? Like, like, could we skip over it and could it blend or whatever? And they're like, yeah, like that was actually something I would have thought a long time ago. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, you can all feel what's not working.
Oh yeah.
And when people on set are allowed to speak up, when the director gives them space to do that, the director may ultimately say, no, that's not where we're going. But if you can create a space where everyone feels like they have a voice, you will undoubtedly have a better film. And that's not to say I'm not a fan of actors doing the director's job. I'm not a fan of that.
Right.
I think a lot of actors try to do that, especially when they direct other actors. No one likes that. No one likes that. But I love directors who will let me question the script, who will let me have conversations with them until we land on something we love, and who will let me actually bring all the work that I've done before I even get there on set to the set. I love that.
That's so cool. And the thing with writing too, because I'm kind of a perfectionist, which adds to the writer's block, right? It's just like the script has to be perfecto.
Yep.
The script will keep changing until you hit the final copy of the edit of post process. Like that's the final script essentially, because, and I think not recognizing that just adds more to the confusion of like the perfect script, like what is a perfect script? And the script is just a blueprint. And like once you get that, it's just easier to tell the story.
There's a fine balance, right? Like you have to go into any kind of creative thing having the confidence to put yourself out there, put your work out there, but having the flexibility to not take it personally if it changes, Yep. Because you may not know how something will work until you are filming it. You have the lighting and everything is set up and you go, oh, wow, that line, there's not really a way we can make that work.
Cut.
Bye, Felicia. Yep. But yeah, that's the best though. Because then you all have these great memories of like remember when this was the line? I can't believe that. Or like, so it's so fun. It should be playtime, you know?
I also love outtakes. I think the
Love it.
more bloopers and outtakes there are, like on extra DVD stuff, the funnier and more entertaining the movie is. Even if it's a
Yeah.
serious, dead serious movie, there's always going to be moments of people breaking out into laughter because, I mean, there should be. Well, I don't know. Just from my experience, there's always moments of people being like, well, that didn't work. And then
Yeah.
random
Yeah.
commentary.
Yeah. And what that means, though, I think what you're saying, forgive me if I'm not hearing this correctly, but I think what you're saying is if people are allowed to play on set and mess up, you're doing something right.
Yeah.
You're doing something right. Like if they can say, well, that didn't work, and they feel safe enough to completely mess up, you've created a space where the magic happens.
Well, it's just fun. Like if you're not having fun doing it, then like, why are you there? You know? And when shoots get stressful, because they do get stressful, you always have to remind yourself, we're all here having fun, hopefully. If not, we can discuss it afterward, you know, but like that's the hope, is that everybody's on the same page to have fun and at least find new ways to better their craft on this project, whatever it is. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. Well, and in order to have fun, you have to know people are also doing their jobs.
right. Yep.
Otherwise, it's not fun. It's avoidance.
Yep.
Yeah.
So what are some of the best highs that you've experienced?
Performing live as an actor in theater and singing, and you feel, even not even singing, but just performing live, and you can feel the audience breathing with you. There is nothing like that. Nothing like.
Do you get stage fright at all?
I get vocal fright when I sing specifically, but not just acting. Like I did one of my favorite plays I've done was Tally's Folly. I don't know if you've read it, but I highly recommend it. It is a 2-person play, a man and a woman on stage for 90 minutes. And it's a Pulitzer Prize winner. It's very good. And that was a little nerve-wracking because of how much dialogue is in it, but it was such rich, good dialogue that made sense. And there are so many moments in that where you could literally feel the audience breathe with you. And it's just magical, because with film, you don't get that as much unless you go watch it. And at that point, the film's been edited. Your performance might look completely different. You know, good editors are a godsend.
Yes, they are.
Or, you know, and bad editors are, you know, Lucifer. They, you know, like they can make or break your film or your performance. And I have so much more empathy for actors I grew up watching. I thought that they used to be a bad actor and now they're a good actor. And then I was like, wait a second, what got edited out? You know, what reactions did they have that aren't there anymore? Or was this their worst take of the day? And that's what was chosen. You know, I just have so much empathy. But yeah, I would say that performing in front of a live audience and you feel like they're with you and you feel like they're learning and growing with you is beautiful. I would also say when I work on a set where everyone cares and is giving their all, there's nothing like that. To me, it's like sacred.
That's always fun.
Yeah.
I did what do you call it? Tech crew. I was on the tech crew for high school stuff for plays. And yeah, that was fun. I liked theater stuff, but it was even better being like, because you know we all dressed in blacks and nobody can see us, and being on the stage and like looking through like tiny holes like on the set pieces and just like watching the audience be mesmerized by the talent on the stage. You know, it was really cool.
Yeah. Fun. There's a feedback there that is everything. Like I've done shows that touched people's hearts, whether I was ensemble or leading role or whatever, it doesn't matter. But they come up to you and say, you know, I want to make some changes in my life based on what I saw today. And it really is powerful and it means a lot. And I think a lot of people think you want to be an actor or a writer or director for your own quote glory, I guess. I really don't feel like when you do this professionally that there's a lot of glamour or glory. I have played a tree on set recently. But to me, the value is when it really impacts people's lives and makes them think differently than they thought before.
Yeah.
We've all had movies we go into and we walk out and we're like, wow, I don't know what happened, but my chromosomes are different.
Yeah.
Like my DNA is different. I think differently from now on.
Yeah.
I have more empathy. I have more compassion. I have more love, all of that, you know?
Yeah. I think, I don't know, just being a creative, there's a lot of ways you can send a message, however that may be. But even if it's not, I don't think a lot of filmmakers know what they're saying specifically. They're just like, this is such a cool idea or whatever, right? Like that's the idea that's cool. But then like the end product just has so much meaning to it. It's like, yo, you created some gold.
Yeah. Well, and sometimes the film itself, maybe the script is, pretty good, but then you get a score under it and it's a different film, or just the way it's shot. And there's layers of meaning. And sometimes it's just like a silly, fun idea you thought of, and then you come out of it. And if there's humanity in it, it matters. Period.
Yep. So because earlier you were talking about how you want to get into directing next. How do you see that playing out? Like what do you have planned for that?
Yeah. So I've talked to a bunch of local directors, and many of whom were actors first. And I asked them about it because I feel enormously underqualified to begin doing that, even with my own scripts, because I know there's so much that goes into it. I feel a bit of solace knowing I would have a DP because that's the part that I'm like, I cannot do that. No, but if I can go to a DP and say, this is what we're going for, how do you suggest we make that happen? And then I'm able to get the performance out of the actors, I can do that. I can do that. So I talked to one actress who recently directed a feature, and she said, as an actor, she said, you've got all you need to start. Just do it. She said, if you start as an actor, especially, you have the majority of the bare bones you need because you have the story and you know the story and you know how a scene works and where the, inciting incident is in the story and where the climax is and where the conflict is. And most of it's about conflict and about status and, all these things that you study as an actor. So in order to start doing it, I have scripts that I've written that I plan on getting with people I trust and really good experience. I want to balance out my inexperience as a director with experienced artists, right? Experienced DPs, experienced 80s, experienced gaffers, sound, because they will teach me and I will bring what I have. I think that there's a balance of you have to admit what you don't know and be willing to learn always, but also don't be afraid to say, you know what? I've studied so much as an actor. I put at least 10,000 hours in, and that's what I hear it takes to be an expert, right? And I'm going to continue to learn. So I'll just bring what I have and balance out my strengths and balance out my weaknesses with very strong people. That's the plan.
That's exciting.
It is. I love it. And I've done acting coaching, and I've directed, children in theater and acting coaching for adults. So as far as the acting part goes and the story goes, that's great. And then my plan is to have great DPs and gaffers and sound to help me.
DPs save a lot of headaches.
Yeah. Yes. I have a couple in my pocket that I've met on sets that are my friends, who I plan on keeping very close to me. And when I have the ability to do so, I plan on paying them very well.
Yeah, I don't know. This goes back to collaboration stuff though. And I think pre-production stuff, before you even start shooting, all the meetings that happen for that.
Yeah.
It gets a lot of anxiety because you're is this going to work? You don't know if it's going to work out. And then you could think you got something good, and then the post you're like, well, what did we shoot? Like that did not go well. Or you could have like a bad day, or so you thought, and you look at the end result, you're like, we got what we needed, like it's confirmation that we're doing something great, and it just wouldn't happen without everybody involved. So
Yeah, and I feel nervous. I feel scared about anything. I still feel scared about acting,
what
but uh if I go into it willing to learn, I'm not scared. And willing to be like, you know what? I don't know, let's figure it out.
what are your fears of it then?
What are my fears about?
Yeah.
I mean, you always have fears that people will see you fillet yourself in front of them and be as vulnerable as possible, and they'll reject it. Everyone fears rejection. Everyone.
Oh, yeah.
Abandonment, all of that. And also that you'll put your heart and soul. I think it's scarier to put your whole heart and soul into something than it is to do it halfway. Because if you put your whole heart and soul into it and they still don't like it, what does that say about you? I think that's the ultimate gremlin, right?
Yeah.
But when you dissect that, like when you really look at it, it's complete bull. Because what it says about you really is that you're a risk taker and you're brave. So if you have good people around you, you don't have a reason to be afraid, and if you're risking.
Well, dang, you should do a TED Talk.
Once I've accomplished some things that I feel I can speak to, I maybe I'll do that. I don't know.
That's exciting. And like you said too, with like the heart and soul into it. Mm-hmm. I read some critic reviews from like movies. Like, I mean, this latest Saw movie, right?
Yeah.
Saw is notorious for, being Saw. I mean, that's what it is. You know what you're getting when you go into it.
You better, or you're going to be shocked or disappointed.
Yeah. Well, and some of these reviews already have like a bias to them, and they just like trash on that, plus all the other movies and all the other works of like the director. And like, I'm like, yo, that's not, because I feel like you're a good critic when you understand the craft and when you see their points and you just point out why it did not work for you.
Mm-hmm.
Then I think as filmmakers and other creatives, it's like, oh, well, that's fine. Thank you for your opinion. Like it's not like tearing you down, but when you like full on make it personal, like I can't imagine, like that would suck so bad to get to read those, because they read them. People read what you write, Right.
They do. But also, and with social media, it's like extra hard. Like this is always going to be, anytime you put yourself out there, you're opening yourself up to naysayers. You are. But I love Brene Brown. I love her.
Who?
But Brene Brown.
Who's she?
Oh, my friend. There's a TED Talk on vulnerability by Brene Brown, which is how she got famous. But she is a researcher who studies shame and vulnerability.
Ooh.
And her books are phenomenal. And I think every artist should definitely read them. But she often, she has a book called Daring Greatly. And there's a quote in it by Teddy Roosevelt where he basically says that if you're not in the ring, if your face isn't marred with blood, you don't get to criticize the person in the ring. And who is daring greatly with blood on their face and they're falling and getting back up. Like you don't get to criticize them. So again, I think it's so imperative to filter who you listen to.
Oh yeah.
And I think some people take that and they're like, that means I should only listen to people who agree with me. That's a mistake. Don't do that. But you also shouldn't surround yourself with people who only disagree with you. You should surround yourself with people who love you no matter what you do and who will be honest with you. So those types of critics, that if I put out a film someday and I get feedback like that, it's going to suck. But I think the conclusion I'll get to at the end of my cry fest will be that person doesn't have my best interest in mind. And they're not critiquing it from a place of wanting it to be better. They're critiquing it from a place of wanting me to feel horrible.
And for clickbait. Yep.
And clickbait. Yes. And I'm not interested in those opinions.
No, I saw the director retweet it and call him out. And I was just like, dang. sucks.
Well, and he retweeted it probably to gain power back, right? Like wearing the freak flag.
Yeah.
Fine. Yeah.
But all right, well, let's start wrapping this up. I like to end this on 2 questions.
Cool.
Number 1, how do you hope you can inspire others?
If I can, whether through writing, acting, directing, anything, if I can change someone's perspective about someone different than them, I've done my job.
I love that. That's good.
Or even just if I've made someone's life a little better or helped them grow in some way, or even just smile in some way, But the ultimate thing would be that they change the way they think based on what I'm doing, and leaning more toward compassion as a result.
I love that. And then finally, but not least, what's one piece of advice that has stuck to you throughout the years, and how do you apply it?
My dad would always say most fear is not based in fact. So when you are afraid, analyze the facts, and you'll usually find that you're okay.
I love that. See, yeah. I love I love that. I love asking that question because there's so much personal experiences behind it, like with your dad or somebody said they had a random stranger stop them once and tell them something. I'm like, what?
I love that.
It's just so much. It's unique. So I really love that personal touch to it. Yeah. All right. Well, Kenna, where can people find you? Like, drop all your stuff.
They can find me on Instagram, Kenna Roubicek. And from there, you can link to my agent's website and see my reels. Also, KennaRoubicek.com. That's a lie. That's a lie. It's called itsjustkenna.com. That's my website that isn't up completely because I just changed my name, so I'm changing things over. But Kenna Roubicek on Instagram is great. You can email me, message me, whatever.
Wow. Well, that's actually, I think that's like the least amount anybody's ever said. That's a lie. One of my guests said, he's like, well, if they want to find me, they'll find a way. And I'm like, okay.
Okay. Oh, I will say too, Roubicek is Roubicek.
Heck yeah. And it'll all be in the show notes and all that stuff.
It's a very weird name.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. I'm glad we got to talk on this lovely
Thanks for hanging out with me. Sorry it took so long to coordinate.
No, I mean, you've been busy. Like, literally, you just got married, 2 months ago, maybe?
Yeah. Yep. And on set and writing and trying to make dreams happen.
Life happens,
Yeah.
So I there's no hard feelings. I'm glad we got it to work out. So
yeah, thanks, friend.
Yeah, and you can follow the podcast on all the stuff. And Kenna, I want to collaborate with you someday, so we'll make it happen.
Yes, please.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for coming on.